William Hayes owned half the city and had never lost a battle. With his $15,000 suits and billion-dollar empire, he crushed anyone who dared stand in his way. Today, he was about to destroy the lives of 200 families with a single signature. Emma Johnson was fighting for survival. A single mother working 2 jobs, she was barely keeping her 7-year-old daughter Sophie alive. Sophie's rare heart condition required constant medical care, and their small apartment was the only thing standing between them and homelessness. When William decided to personally evict Emma to make an example of her, he thought it would be just another business transaction. 48 hours to destroy a life, collect his profits, and move on to the next deal. But sometimes the universe has other plans. What started as a simple eviction would become something neither of them could have imagined. A moment of panic, a spilled bottle of medication, and a $15,000 suit would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. Because when you build your empire on the suffering of others, karma has a way of keeping score. And William Hayes was about to learn that the woman he chose to destroy would become the most important person in his life. William Hayes stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city spread out beneath him like a chessboard. Every building, every street corner, every life below was just another piece in his billion-dollar game. At 42, he had built an empire that stretched across 3 states, and today he was about to make his boldest move yet. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Hayes, the Oakwood files are ready for your review." William turned from the window, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the marble floor. The Oakwood Apartments project had been months in the making. 200 families would be displaced, but William saw numbers, not faces. The modest apartment complex sat on prime real estate worth $50 million once developed. The families living there were paying $800 a month for what would become luxury condos selling for $500,000 each. He picked up the thick folder from his mahogany desk, flipping through eviction notices that had been prepared by his legal team. Each notice was identical, cold, efficient. 48 hours to vacate. William had learned that speed was everything in real estate. The longer people had to think, the more they fought back. "Sir, there's one unit that might be problematic," his assistant Jennifer said, standing in the doorway. "Unit 4B. Single mother, works at the Children's Hospital. She's been there 5 years, never missed a payment." William looked up from the papers. "What makes her problematic?" "She's organized some of the other tenants. They're talking about fighting the eviction in court." A slow smile spread across William's face. This was exactly the kind of challenge he lived for. "Then we make an example of her." "What's her name?" "Emma Johnson. 28 years old, works as a pediatric nurse. Has a 7-year-old daughter with medical issues." William closed the folder with a sharp snap. "Perfect. I'll handle this one personally." Jennifer's eyes widened. "Sir, you never handle evictions personally." "Exactly. That's why this will be so effective. When word gets out that William Hayes himself showed up to evict someone, the rest will pack up without a fight." 20 minutes later, William was sliding into the back seat of his black Mercedes. The drive to Oakwood Apartments took him through parts of the city he rarely saw. The buildings grew smaller, the paint more faded, the cars older. This was the world he had left behind decades ago, and he felt nothing but contempt for the people who had chosen to stay trapped in mediocrity. Oakwood Apartments looked exactly as he expected. A 3-story brick building with cracked sidewalks and a playground that had seen better days. Children ran around the small courtyard while their parents sat on concrete steps, talking in small groups. Several of them looked up as the Mercedes pulled into the parking lot, their conversation stopping. William stepped out of the car, his $15,000 suit a stark contrast to the worn surroundings. He carried the eviction notices in a leather briefcase, walking with the confidence of a man who had never been told no. The building smelled of cooking spices and cleaning products. William climbed the stairs to the 2nd floor, his footsteps echoing in the narrow hallway. Unit 4B was at the end of the corridor, and he could hear voices inside. A woman's voice, urgent and worried, and a child's voice, high and scared. He knocked on the door, 3 sharp raps that demanded immediate attention. "Just a minute," came the woman's voice from inside. William checked his watch. He had 4 more buildings to visit today, and he didn't have time for delays. He knocked again, harder this time. The door opened, and William found himself face to face with Emma Johnson. She was younger than he had expected, with tired eyes and brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore scrubs covered in small cartoon characters, and there was a stethoscope around her neck. "Can I help you?" she asked, but her attention was clearly divided. Behind her, a small girl sat on a worn couch, clutching a stuffed animal. The child looked pale and thin, with dark circles under her eyes. "Emma Johnson." William's voice was cold and professional. "Yes, that's me. Look, I'm sorry, but this really isn't a good time. My daughter has a doctor's appointment in 15 minutes, and I can't be late." William opened his briefcase and pulled out the eviction notice. "I'm William Hayes, owner of this building. You have 48 hours to vacate the premises." Emma's face went white. 48 hours? That's not legal. The standard notice period is 7 days. I'm not interested in what's standard. I'm interested in what's efficient. William held out the papers. "You can read the details later. Right now, I need you to sign acknowledging receipt." Emma's hands were shaking as she took the papers. "Mr. Hayes, please. I've been here 5 years. I've never missed a payment, never caused any problems. My daughter is sick, and we can't just move somewhere else overnight. Your personal circumstances are not my concern. Business is business." Behind Emma, the little girl started coughing, a harsh, wet sound that seemed to come from deep in her chest. Emma immediately turned toward her daughter, the eviction papers forgotten in her hand. "Sophie, honey, where's your inhaler?" Emma rushed to the couch, frantically searching through a small bag that sat on the coffee table. "Mommy, I can't breathe," Sophie whispered, her lips taking on a bluish tint. Emma found the inhaler and quickly administered it to her daughter. But as she did, she accidentally knocked over a small bottle of pills that had been sitting on the coffee table. The white capsules scattered across the floor, and several of them flew directly at William. The pills hit his suit jacket and bounced off, leaving white powder stains on the dark fabric. William looked down at his ruined suit in shock, then back up at Emma with fury in his eyes. "You have got to be kidding me," he snarled. "This suit costs more than you make in 6 months." Emma was still focused on her daughter, who was struggling to breathe. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." "Sophie, honey, is that better?" "I don't care about your excuses," William snapped. "You just destroyed a $15,000 suit. I'm adding the cost of replacement to your eviction notice, and I'm also suing you for damages." Emma looked up at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "It was an accident. My daughter couldn't breathe. I don't care if she was dying. You're responsible for the damage." William brushed at the stains on his jacket, which only made them worse. "And now you have 24 hours to vacate, not 48. "You can't do that," Emma said, standing up and placing herself between William and Sophie. "I know my rights. You can't just change the terms because you're angry." William stepped closer, using his height to intimidate her. "Lady, I own half this city. I can do whatever I want. You think some judge is going to side with you against me? You think anyone is going to care about your sob story when I'm done with you?" Emma's voice shook, but she stood her ground. "My daughter has a rare heart condition. She needs to be close to the children's hospital for her treatments. I can't just move her anywhere." "Then you should have thought of that before you decided to play activist and organize the other tenants against me." William's voice was ice cold. "I know all about your little meetings, your plans to fight this eviction. Well, congratulations. You just made this personal." Sophie started coughing again, this time more violently. Emma knelt beside her daughter, rubbing her back and whispering soothing words. The sight of the sick child should have softened William's heart, but instead it only annoyed him more. "Mommy, I'm scared," Sophie whispered. "I know, baby. We're going to be okay." Emma looked up at William, tears in her eyes. "Please, I'll pay for your suit. I'll work out a payment plan. Just don't do this to us." William looked at the woman kneeling on the floor, at the sick child clinging to her mother, at the scattered pills and the modest apartment with its thrift store furniture and medical equipment. He felt nothing but contempt. "You have until tomorrow at noon," he said, tucking the signed eviction notice into his briefcase. "If you're not gone by then, I'll have the sheriff remove you myself." Emma scrambled to her feet. "Wait, please. At least give me the standard 7 days. I need time to find somewhere else to live, somewhere close to the hospital." William was already walking toward the door. "You should have thought of that before you spilled pills all over a suit worth more than your car." "Mr. Hayes, please," Emma called after him. "I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I'll stop organizing the other tenants. I'll convince them not to fight the eviction. Just give me more time." William paused at the door, his hand on the handle. For a moment, Emma thought she saw something flicker in his eyes, some hint of humanity. But then his expression hardened again. "The only thing I want from you is to be gone by tomorrow noon. If you're smart, you'll start packing now." He walked out, leaving Emma standing in the doorway with Sophie clinging to her leg. As William made his way down the hallway, he could hear the little girl crying and asking her mother why the mean man was so angry. William didn't look back. He had 4 more buildings to visit, and he was already running behind schedule. The Mercedes was waiting in the parking lot, and his driver immediately noticed the stains on his suit. "Sir, what happened to your jacket?" "Nothing that can't be fixed," William replied, sliding into the back seat. "Take me to the next building." As they drove away, William looked back at Oakwood Apartments one more time. Through a second-floor window, he could see Emma Johnson pacing back and forth, a phone pressed to her ear. Probably calling lawyers, he thought. Good luck with that. William pulled out his own phone and dialed his attorney's number. "Richard, it's William. I need you to expedite the Oakwood evictions. And I want you to file a lawsuit against Emma Johnson in Unit 4B. She damaged my property, and I want compensation." "What kind of damages are we talking about?" Richard asked. $15,000 for the suit, plus punitive damages for emotional distress and loss of business time. Make it $50,000 total. "William, that seems excessive for a cleaning bill. I'm not paying you to question my decisions. I'm paying you to execute them. Can you handle that? Or do I need to find a new attorney?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'll file the paperwork this afternoon." "Good. And Richard, I want these people out tomorrow. Use every legal trick you know. File for immediate possession, claim health code violations, whatever it takes." William hung up and leaned back in the leather seat. Through the tinted windows, he watched the city pass by. Every building, every street, every life was just another opportunity for profit. Emma Johnson would learn that lesson the hard way. The Mercedes pulled up to the next building on William's list, and he stepped out with his briefcase full of eviction notices. The stains on his suit were a reminder of what happened when people didn't know their place. But by tomorrow, Emma Johnson would understand exactly where she stood in William Hayes' world. At the bottom, the game was just beginning, and William Hayes never lost. The next morning, Emma Johnson sat at her kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee and a stack of papers spread out before her. She had been up all night making phone calls, searching for apartments, and trying to figure out how to move her entire life in less than 24 hours. Sophie was still asleep on the couch, her small chest rising and falling with each labored breath. The medication from the night before had helped, but Emma knew her daughter would need to see Dr. Turner again soon. The stress of the eviction was already affecting Sophie's fragile health. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from her supervisor at the hospital. "Emma, we heard about the eviction. Can you still make your shift today?" Emma stared at the message. She needed the money now more than ever, but she also needed to find a new place to live. She typed back quickly, "I'll be there. Might be a few minutes late." She looked at the eviction notice again, reading every word carefully. William Hayes had given her 24 hours, but the legal language suggested he might not even have the right to do that. Emma had called 3 lawyers the night before, but none of them would take a case against William Hayes without a substantial retainer. $5,000 up front, one had said. Emma barely had $500 in her savings account. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Emma's heart raced, thinking it might be William Hayes coming to throw them out early. But when she opened the door, she found Mrs. Chun from next door holding a casserole dish. "I heard about what happened," Mrs. Chun said softly. "I brought you some food. You'll need your strength." Emma accepted the dish gratefully. "Thank you. I don't know what we're going to do. Has anyone else gotten eviction notices?" Emma nodded. "Mr. Hayes visited every unit yesterday. Everyone has 48 hours except me. He gave me 24 because I accidentally spilled Sophie's medication on his suit." Mrs. Chin's face darkened. "That man has no heart. My husband and I have been saving for months to move somewhere better, but we weren't ready yet. Now we have to find something in 2 days. I tried to organize everyone to fight this legally," Emma said. "But the lawyers all want money up front, and Hayes has unlimited resources. There has to be something we can do." Emma looked back at Sophie sleeping on the couch. "Right now, I just need to focus on finding us a place to live, somewhere close to the hospital." Mrs. Chun squeezed Emma's hand. "If you need anything, you call me. We're all in this together." After Mrs. Chun left, Emma woke Sophie gently. Come on, sweetheart. We need to get you to the hospital for your checkup. Sophie rubbed her eyes. Are we moving today, Mommy? We're going to try to find us a new home, baby. But first, let's make sure you're feeling okay. The drive to the children's hospital took 20 minutes through morning traffic. Emma had made this trip hundreds of times over the past 2 years, ever since Sophie had been diagnosed with her heart condition. The routine was familiar and comforting, even in the midst of chaos. Dr. Rebecca Turner was waiting in the examination room when they arrived. She was a tall woman with kind eyes and graying hair, and Sophie adored her. Dr. Turner had been the one to catch Sophie's condition early, probably saving her life. How are we feeling today, Miss Sophie? Dr. Turner asked, pulling up a chair to sit at eye level with the little girl. I'm okay. But Mommy is sad because a mean man wants us to leave our home. Dr. Turner looked at Emma with concern. What's going on? Emma explained the situation while Dr. Turner examined Sophie. The doctor's expression grew more serious as she listened. Emma, you know how important stability is for Sophie's condition. The stress of moving, especially somewhere far from the hospital, could trigger serious complications. I know, Emma said, fighting back tears. But I don't have a choice. Hayes owns half the city, and everywhere I can afford is either too far away or already has a waiting list. Dr. Turner finished her examination and made some notes in Sophie's chart. Her heart rate is elevated, probably from stress. I'm going to prescribe some additional medication to help keep her stable during this transition. Dr. Turner, I might not be able to afford new medication right now, Emma said quietly. Hayes is also suing me for $50,000 because I accidentally damaged his suit. Dr. Turner's pen stopped moving. $50,000? For a suit. He says it was worth $15,000, plus punitive damages. That's ridiculous. No judge would award that kind of money for an accident. Maybe not, but I can't afford to fight it in court. And even if I could, Hayes has resources I could never match. Dr. Turner was quiet for a moment, studying Sophie's chart. Emma, I need to tell you something. Hayes Real Estate owns the building where my practice is located. Last month, they tripled our rent with no notice. We're being forced to move our entire pediatric unit. Emma's heart sank. Where are you moving to? Across town. It's going to be at least a 40-minute drive from where you live now. Then it doesn't matter anyway, Emma said. If Sophie and I have to move far away, we'll lose you as her doctor regardless. Dr. Turner stood up and walked to the window. Emma, I've been practicing medicine for 25 years. I've seen a lot of powerful people come and go, but I've never seen anyone as ruthless as William Hayes. What do you mean? He doesn't just buy buildings. He destroys communities. 3 months ago, he evicted an entire senior living facility so he could build luxury condos. Those elderly people had nowhere to go. Half of them ended up in substandard facilities across the state, separated from their families. Emma felt a chill run down her spine. Why doesn't anyone stop him? Because he's too powerful. He has judges, city council members, and police officials in his pocket. Anyone who tries to fight him ends up bankrupt or worse. Sophie had been listening to the conversation, her eyes wide with fear. Mommy, is the mean man going to hurt us? Emma knelt down beside her daughter. No, baby. I won't let anyone hurt you. We're going to be okay. But as they left the hospital, Emma wasn't sure she believed her own words. She had 12 hours to find a new place to live, pack their belongings, and somehow maintain Sophie's medical care. The task seemed impossible. They drove through the city, stopping at apartment complex after apartment complex. The places Emma could afford were either too far from the hospital or in neighborhoods that weren't safe for a single mother with a sick child. The places that were suitable were far beyond her budget. By noon, Emma was exhausted and defeated. She had called in sick to work, knowing she couldn't afford to lose any more time. But she was also risking her job, which was the only thing keeping her and Sophie afloat. They returned to Oakwood Apartments to find William Hayes waiting in the parking lot. He stood beside his black Mercedes, checking his watch impatiently. When he saw Emma's car, his expression hardened. Emma parked and got out slowly, her heart pounding. Mr. Hayes, I need more time. I've been looking all morning, but I can't find anywhere suitable for my daughter's medical needs. William looked at his watch again. It's 12:15. You're late. Please, just a few more days. I'll pay you extra rent. I'll sign whatever you want. Just don't make us homeless. I gave you 24 hours. You failed to meet the deadline. William gestured toward a sheriff's deputy who had been waiting near the building entrance. "Officer Martinez is here to ensure you vacate immediately." Emma's legs felt weak. "You can't do this. I have rights." "You forfeited your rights when you destroyed my property." William opened his briefcase and pulled out a court order. "This gives me immediate possession of the unit. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings." Sophie got out of the car and ran to her mother, wrapping her arms around Emma's legs. "Mommy, I'm scared." Emma picked up her daughter, holding her close. "Officer Martinez, surely this isn't legal. She's just a child with a serious medical condition." Officer Martinez looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I have to enforce the court order, but I can give you a little extra time to pack if you need it." William's face flushed red. "Officer, you'll follow the order exactly as written. 30 minutes, not 1 second more." "Sir, with respect, this is a medical situation. The child appears to be ill. The child's health is not my responsibility." William's voice was cold and sharp. "I have other properties to manage today. I can't waste time on one tenant who refuses to follow the rules." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "Mr. Hayes, please. I'm begging you. Just give me one more day. I'll find somewhere to go, I promise." William looked at Emma holding her sick daughter, both of them crying, and felt nothing but annoyance. "You had your chance. You chose to waste it." He turned to Officer Martinez. "I want them out. Now." As Emma carried Sophie upstairs to pack their belongings, she could hear William on the phone with someone, his voice echoing in the stairwell. "Richard, I need you to file liens against all the other Oakwood tenants who haven't paid the early termination fees. And contact the building inspector. I want this place condemned as soon as it's empty." Emma's hands shook as she threw clothes into garbage bags. Everything she and Sophie owned had to fit in her car, which meant leaving behind furniture, Sophie's toys, and years of memories. Sophie sat on the bed, clutching her stuffed animal. "Mommy, where are we going to sleep tonight?" Emma didn't have an answer. She had called every motel in the city, and none of them would take long-term guests. The few that might consider it wanted deposits she couldn't afford. "We'll figure something out, sweetheart. Maybe we can stay with Mrs. Chun for a night or two." But even as she said it, Emma knew that Mrs. Chun was facing her own eviction in 24 hours. The entire building would be empty by the end of the week, and then William Hayes would tear it down to build something that would make him even richer. 25 minutes later, Emma loaded the last bag into her car. Sophie sat in the passenger seat, her face pale and her breathing labored. The stress was clearly affecting her heart condition. William Hayes stood in the parking lot, watching with satisfaction as Emma closed the car door. "Officer Martinez, I need you to change the locks immediately. I don't want any of these people trying to come back." "Sir, where are they supposed to go?" Officer Martinez asked. William shrugged. "That's not my problem. I gave them legal notice. They chose not to comply." As Emma started her car, she looked back at the building that had been her home for 5 years. Other tenants were watching from their windows, knowing their turn was coming soon. She had let them all down by failing to organize an effective resistance. Emma drove slowly through the city, having no destination in mind. Sophie had fallen asleep in the passenger seat, her breathing shallow and irregular. Emma knew she needed to get her daughter to a safe place soon, but she had no idea where that might be. She stopped at a gas station to use the restroom and check her phone. There was a message from her supervisor at the hospital. "Emma, we need to talk. Please call me as soon as possible." Emma's heart sank. She was probably being fired for missing work without proper notice. Her nursing job was the only thing keeping her and Sophie alive, and now she was losing that too. She called the hospital from the gas station parking lot. "Linda, it's Emma. I got your message." "Emma, where are you?" "Dr. Turner has been trying to reach you. I'm trying to find somewhere for Sophie and me to stay. We were evicted today." "Oh, Emma. I'm so sorry. Listen, Dr. Turner wants to speak with you. She says it's urgent." Emma was transferred to Dr. Turner's office. "Emma, thank goodness. I've been trying to call you for hours." "I'm sorry, Dr. Turner. It's been a difficult day. I can imagine." "Emma, I need you to bring Sophie to the hospital immediately. I've been monitoring her test results from this morning, and I'm seeing some concerning changes." Emma felt her world spinning. "What kind of changes?" "Her heart rhythm is becoming irregular. It's probably stress-related, but I need to run some tests to be sure. How soon can you get here?" Emma looked at Sophie sleeping in the car. "We'll be there in 20 minutes. "Good. And Emma? I'm admitting Sophie for observation." She needs to be in a stable environment for the next few days. As Emma drove to the hospital, she realized that William Hayes had won completely. Not only had he destroyed her home and her livelihood, but now Sophie's health was deteriorating because of the stress he had caused. But Emma didn't know that at that exact moment. William Hayes was sitting in his office, reviewing the financial projections for the Oakwood development. He was calculating how much money he would make from destroying the lives of 200 families. And he didn't know that his own life was about to change forever. William was on a conference call with his investors, explaining how the evictions were proceeding ahead of schedule. The building will be empty by Friday, he was saying. Demo can begin next week. The stress of the day, combined with his fury over the stained suit and the defiance of the tenants, had William's blood pressure at dangerous levels. But he was too focused on his profits to notice the warning signs. "Sir, the revenue projections look excellent," one of the investors said through the speakerphone. "This could be our most profitable project yet." William smiled, leaning back in his chair. That's what happens when you don't let sentiment interfere with business decisions. These people needed to learn that. The words died in his throat. William felt a sudden, crushing pain in his chest, followed by a sharp, stabbing sensation in his head. The room began to spin, and he could hear his own voice echoing strangely as he tried to speak. "Sir? Mr. Hayes? Are you there?" William tried to answer, but his words came out slurred and unintelligible. He reached for the phone, but his arm wouldn't respond properly. The left side of his body felt heavy and numb. He tried to stand, but his legs gave out beneath him. William Hayes, the man who controlled half the city, collapsed to the floor of his penthouse office, unconscious and completely helpless. The investors on the conference call continued talking for several minutes before realizing that something was wrong. By the time William's assistant found him, 20 minutes had passed. The paramedics arrived within minutes, but William was unresponsive. They rushed him to the nearest hospital, sirens wailing through the city streets. The nearest hospital was Children's Medical Center, the same hospital where Emma Johnson worked, where Sophie was being admitted for observation, and where Dr. Turner was preparing to fight for the life of a 7-year-old girl whose world had been destroyed by the man now fighting for his own life just 3 floors below. The emergency room at Children's Medical Center was chaos. William Hayes had been rushed and unconscious, his expensive suit now wrinkled and stained with his own saliva. The stroke had hit him hard, and the medical team was working frantically to stabilize him. 3 floors above, Emma Johnson sat beside Sophie's hospital bed, holding her daughter's hand while machines monitored her irregular heartbeat. Dr. Turner had confirmed that the stress of the eviction was affecting Sophie's condition, but with proper care and rest, she would recover. "The good news is that we caught it early," Dr. Turner explained to Emma. "Sophie needs to stay here for at least 72 hours for observation. The stress has triggered some arrhythmia, but it's manageable with medication." Emma nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. "Dr. Turner, I don't have insurance coverage for a hospital stay this long, and I don't even have a home to take her to when she's released. Let me worry about the insurance for now. Your priority is Sophie's health." Emma looked around the pediatric room with its cheerful wall decorations and child-sized furniture. "This is probably the safest place we've been all day." What Emma didn't know was that the man responsible for their homelessness was lying unconscious just 3 floors below, his billion-dollar empire suddenly as fragile as the little girl sleeping in the bed beside her. Dr. Turner's pager buzzed. "I need to check on something in the ER. Try to get some rest, Emma. You've been through enough today." Down in the emergency room, the medical team had managed to stabilize William Hayes, but the damage was significant. The stroke had affected his speech and left-side motor functions. He was conscious but disoriented, his words slurred and barely intelligible. Where am I?" William tried to say, but the words came out as unintelligible mumbles. "Mr. Hayes, you're in the hospital. You've had a stroke," Dr. Patterson, the emergency room physician, explained. "We're going to move you to the intensive care unit for monitoring." William tried to protest, tried to demand his private physician, tried to assert the authority that had ruled his life for decades. But his body betrayed him. The left side of his face drooped, his left arm hung useless at his side, and his words were nothing but garbled sounds. For the first time in his adult life, William Hayes was completely powerless. The irony was lost on him in his confused state, but the nurses transferring him to the ICU couldn't help but noticed the name on his chart. William Hayes, the man who owned half the city, was now dependent on the very hospital system he had been systematically destroying through his real estate empire. "Isn't this the guy who's been buying up all the affordable housing?" one nurse whispered to another. "The same one. My sister got evicted from one of his buildings last month." 48 hours notice. William was moved to a private room in the ICU, where he lay connected to machines that monitored his vital signs. His vision was blurry, and he couldn't move his left arm or leg. When he tried to speak, only meaningless sounds came out. A neurologist, Dr. Kim, came to evaluate him. "Mr. Hayes, you've suffered a significant stroke. The good news is that you're stable, but you're going to need extensive rehabilitation. Speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy." William tried to shake his head, tried to indicate that he didn't have time for therapy, that he had business to attend to, but his body wouldn't cooperate. "The stroke has affected your speech center and motor control on your left side," Dr. Kim continued. "Recovery is possible, but it's going to take time and dedication. You'll need round-the-clock care for the foreseeable future." Over the next 24 hours, William's condition stabilized enough for him to be moved to a regular room. His speech was still severely impaired, but he could understand what people were saying to him. His left side remained largely paralyzed, and he needed help with basic tasks like eating and using the bathroom. The humiliation was unbearable. William Hayes, who had never asked anyone for anything, now needed assistance with the most basic human functions. Nurses had to help him eat, had to help him bathe, had to help him use the toilet. His dignity, like his speech, had been stolen by the stroke. On his second day in the hospital, William's assistant Jennifer came to visit. She looked uncomfortable and nervous, clearly unsure how to interact with her powerful boss in such a vulnerable state. "Mr. Hayes, I've been handling your calls and emails," she said, speaking slowly and clearly. "The board of directors is asking about your condition. They want to know when you'll be able to return to work." William tried to respond, but only managed a few garbled syllables. The frustration was overwhelming. He had built an empire through his ability to communicate, to negotiate, to dominate conversations. Now he couldn't even ask for a glass of water. "The doctors say your recovery could take months," Jennifer continued. "Maybe longer. The board is discussing bringing in an interim CEO." William's eyes widened with panic. His company was his life, his identity, his power. Without it, he was nothing. Jennifer seemed to understand his distress. "Don't worry, Mr. Hayes. Your legal team is handling everything. The Oakwood development is proceeding as planned. All the tenants have been evicted, and demolition starts next week." At the mention of Oakwood, William felt a strange emotion he couldn't identify. It wasn't satisfaction or pride, the feelings he expected. It was something else, something uncomfortable. "There was one minor complication," Jennifer added. "The single mother from Unit 4B, Emma Johnson. Her daughter was admitted to this hospital the same day as your stroke. Apparently, the stress of the eviction triggered some kind of heart condition." William tried to process this information. The woman who had spilled medication on his suit, whose life he had destroyed out of spite, was somewhere in this same building with her sick daughter. "The legal team wants to know if you still want to pursue the lawsuit against her," Jennifer said. "Given her current circumstances, they think it might be difficult to collect any damages." William opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He couldn't tell Jennifer that he wanted to drop the lawsuit, couldn't explain that something about the situation felt wrong. He was trapped in his own body, unable to communicate his thoughts. After Jennifer left, William lay alone in his hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in decades, he had nothing to do, nowhere to go, no one to intimidate or impress. He was forced to confront the silence of his own mind. That evening, a new nurse came to check on him. She was young, probably in her late 20s, with tired eyes and a gentle manner. She introduced herself as she checked his and monitored his vital signs. "I'm Emma," she said. "I'll be taking care of you during the night shift." William's heart stopped. Emma Johnson, the woman he had evicted, the woman he was suing, was now his nurse. The irony was so overwhelming that he almost laughed, but the sound that came out was more like a sob. Emma didn't recognize him at first. The stroke had changed his appearance significantly, and she had only seen him briefly during the eviction. She treated him with the same professional kindness she showed all her patients, adjusting his pillows and checking his medication. "How are you feeling tonight, Mr. Hayes?" she asked, studying his chart. William tried to respond, tried to tell her who he was, tried to apologize for what he had done. But his words were unintelligible, and Emma simply nodded sympathetically. "I know it's frustrating not being able to communicate clearly," she said. "But your speech will improve with therapy. You just need to be patient with yourself." Patient. The word was foreign to William Hayes. He had never been patient with anyone, least of all himself. Everything in his life had been about speed, efficiency, immediate results. Now he was being told that recovery would take time, that he would need to depend on others for months. Emma continued her rounds, checking his blood pressure and adjusting his medications. She was gentle but professional, treating him like any other patient. There was no recognition in her eyes, no acknowledgement of their previous encounter. "Is there anything you need before I go?" she asked. William tried to shake his head, but the movement was clumsy and uncontrolled. Emma interpreted it as a yes and leaned closer. "Water? Are you thirsty?" William managed a slight nod, and Emma held a cup with a straw to his lips. Her hands were steady and warm, and she waited patiently while he struggled to drink. "There you go," she said softly. "Small sips. That's good." As Emma prepared to leave, William caught sight of her hospital ID badge. The name, Emma Johnson, was clearly visible, along with her employee photo. Recognition flooded through him like a cold wave. This was her. The woman whose life he had destroyed, whose daughter was sick because of his actions, was now taking care of him in his most vulnerable moment. The woman he had threatened to sue for $50,000 was helping him drink water because he couldn't hold a cup. Emma noticed his stare and followed his gaze to her badge. "Oh, you're looking at my name. I'm Emma Johnson. I'll be your nurse for the next few nights." William tried to speak, tried to communicate recognition, but Emma had already moved on to her next patient. She had no idea that the man she was caring for was the same man who had made her and her daughter homeless. Over the next several days, Emma continued to care for William during her night shifts. She helped him eat, helped him bathe, helped him with physical therapy exercises. She talked to him about his recovery, about the importance of staying positive, about the small victories that would eventually lead to larger improvements. William found himself looking forward to her visits. Emma was the only person who treated him like a human being rather than a powerful businessman who had fallen from grace. She didn't know who he was, so she couldn't judge him for what he had done, but the guilt was eating him alive. Every time Emma adjusted his pillows or brought him medication, William was reminded of what he had taken from her. Every time she smiled at him with genuine kindness, he thought about the tears in her eyes when he had threatened to sue her. On his 5th day in the hospital, William overheard Emma talking to another nurse in the hallway outside his room. "How's your daughter doing?" the other nurse asked. "Sophie's recovering well," Emma replied. "Her heart rhythm has stabilized, and she should be able to go home in a day or two." "That's wonderful. Have you found a place to stay yet?" Emma's voice grew quieter. "We're staying in a motel for now. It's not ideal, especially with Sophie's condition, but it's all I can afford. I'm hoping to find an apartment soon, but everywhere decent is so expensive. What about that lawsuit? Are you still dealing with that?" "The lawyer says it could take months to resolve. $50,000 for spilling medication on someone's suit. I don't know how I'm going to fight it." William felt like he was drowning in shame. Emma was living in a motel with her sick daughter, working night shifts to pay for their survival, while facing a lawsuit that could destroy her financially. And she was taking care of him with compassion and professionalism. That night, when Emma came to check on him, William tried desperately to communicate. He pointed to himself, then to her, trying to make her understand the connection between them. "Are you trying to tell me something?" Emma asked, pulling up a chair beside his bed. William nodded frantically. He pointed to the newspaper on his bedside table, then to himself, then to her again. He was trying to show her that he was the William Hayes from the news stories, the man who had evicted her. Emma picked up the newspaper and looked at it, then back at William. "Are you interested in the news? I can read to you if you'd like." William shook his head in frustration. He tried to write with his good hand, but his motor control was too poor to form legible letters. He was trapped in his own body, unable to confess what he had done. "It's okay," Emma said gently. "Speech and motor control take time to recover. You'll be able to communicate better soon." But William wasn't sure he wanted to recover his ability to speak. What would he say to this woman who had shown him more kindness in a week than he had shown anyone in years? How could he explain that he had tried to destroy her life out of petty revenge? The next morning, Dr. Turner came to check on William's progress. She was making her rounds before heading upstairs to discharge Sophie Johnson. "Mr. Hayes, your recovery is progressing well," she said, reviewing his chart. "Your speech should continue to improve with therapy, and your motor functions are showing signs of returning." William tried to communicate with Dr. Turner, pointing to himself and then toward the ceiling, trying to indicate that he knew about Sophie upstairs. "Are you asking about other patients?" Dr. Turner asked. "I can't discuss other patients with you, Mr. Hayes. Privacy regulations." William's frustration mounted. He was surrounded by people who were connected to his actions, but he couldn't make them understand who he was or what he had done. Later that day, Emma came to say goodbye. Sophie had been discharged, and Emma was switching to day shifts to spend more time with her daughter. "This is my last night caring for you, Mr. Hayes," she said as she checked his vital signs one final time. "You've been a model patient. I hope your recovery continues to go well." William grabbed her hand with his good hand, holding it as tightly as he could. He looked into her eyes, trying to convey everything he couldn't say with words. Emma smiled at him. "You're going to be okay. Recovery takes time, but you're making progress every day. Don't give up." She gently extracted her hand from his grip and prepared to leave. At the door, she turned back. "Mr. Hayes, I want you to know that taking care of you has been the bright spot in a very difficult week. Thank you for reminding me why I became a nurse." After Emma left, William lay alone in his hospital bed, tears streaming down his face. The woman he had tried to destroy had thanked him for reminding her why she chose to help people. She had no idea that her kindness had saved not just his body, but possibly his soul. The next morning, William's lawyer Richard arrived with papers for him to sign. William's right hand was steady enough now to manage a shaky signature. "William, I need your authorization to proceed with several legal matters," Richard said. "The Johnson lawsuit is ready to go to trial. We should be able to get a judgment for the full $50,000. William stared at the papers in front of him. One signature would destroy Emma Johnson's life forever. She would lose everything trying to fight a lawsuit she couldn't win. But William's hand wouldn't move. He looked at Richard and shook his head slowly. "William, this is a slam-dunk case. She damaged your property. We have witnesses, and she has no resources to fight us. Why would you want to drop it?" William pushed the papers away and pointed to the door. He wanted Richard to leave. "I don't understand. This woman cost you thousands of dollars and publicly humiliated you. Why would you let her get away with it?" William managed to speak one clear word. "No." Richard looked confused. "No what?" "No, you don't want to proceed with the lawsuit." William nodded emphatically. "No lawsuit. William, I think the stroke may be affecting your judgment. This is a business decision, not a personal one." But William was done with business decisions that destroyed lives. He had learned something in his week of helplessness, something that all his billions couldn't teach him. He had learned what it meant to depend on someone else's kindness, to be vulnerable, to need help. And the person who had helped him most was the woman he had tried to destroy. Over the following weeks, William's recovery progressed slowly. His speech improved enough for basic conversation, and he regained some use of his left arm and leg. He was moved to a rehabilitation facility, where he spent hours each day relearning basic skills. But the most important rehabilitation was happening in his mind. Every day, William thought about Emma Johnson and her daughter Sophie. He thought about the kindness Emma had shown him, the way she had cared for him without knowing who he was. And he thought about the hundreds of other families he had displaced over the years, families who had children and dreams and fears just like Emma and Sophie. 3 months after his stroke, William was released from the rehabilitation facility. He could walk with a cane, his speech was mostly clear, and he had regained most of his motor functions. But he was not the same man who had collapsed in his office. His first stop was not his company headquarters, but a small apartment complex across town. He had bought the building 6 months earlier and planned to demolish it for luxury condos. But now he had different plans. William found Emma Johnson's name on the resident list and knocked on her door. When she opened it, he saw the recognition dawn in her eyes. "Mr. Hayes," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I came to apologize," William said, his words still slightly slurred from the stroke. "And to give you something." He handed her an envelope. Inside was the deed to the apartment building, transferred to her name. "I don't understand," Emma said, staring at the papers. "You saved my life," William said. "Not just in the hospital, but in every way that matters. I want you to have this building. It's yours now." Emma looked at the deed, then back at William. "Mr. Hayes, I can't accept this. It's too much." "It's not enough," William replied. "Nothing I do will ever be enough to make up for what I put you and Sophie through. But it's a start." Sophie appeared in the doorway, curious about the visitor. She recognized William immediately. "You're the mean man who made us leave our home," she said, hiding behind her mother's legs. William knelt down to Sophie's level, his movements still awkward from the stroke. "Yes, I am. And I'm very sorry. I was wrong to be mean to you and your mommy." Sophie studied his face for a moment. "Are you sick? You talk funny." "Yes, I was very sick. But your mommy helped me get better." Sophie looked at her mother, then back at William. "Mommy helps everyone get better. She's the best nurse in the whole world." William felt tears welling up in his eyes. "Yes, she is. And you're very lucky to have her." Over the following months, William worked to undo the damage he had caused. He converted his luxury developments into affordable housing, established a medical fund for children with heart conditions, and used his wealth to support the very communities he had once destroyed. But the most important change was in William himself. The stroke had taken away his ability to be the ruthless businessman who had built his empire. In its place, he had found something he had never known he was missing: humanity. Emma Johnson had shown him that true strength came not from destroying others, but from lifting them up. And in teaching him that lesson, she had given him the greatest gift of all, the chance to become a better man. The building William had given Emma became a model for affordable housing in the city. Emma managed it with the same compassion she had shown him in the hospital, creating a community where families could thrive. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, William would stop by to read to Sophie or help with her homework. The mean man who had once tried to destroy their lives had become an unlikely family friend, living proof that even the hardest heart could be changed by kindness. The stroke had taken away William's old life, but it had given him something infinitely more valuable: a chance at redemption, and the wisdom to know that the true measure of a man's worth wasn't in what he owned, but in what he gave away.